Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Let's Talk Now podcast. We've got a special guest who's been here before, Ellis James.
Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm just imagining there's like loads of cheers and clapping. I'm walking out onto stage, waving at all the adoring fans. But yeah, thanks for having me on.
That's all right, man. Always glad to have you on. Your third appearance, hat-trick hero.
Yep, gone for it. Backstick merchant,
That's
in
it.
the box.
That's it. Three of the best. He's made them pay. I can't remember how the rest of it goes, but we've heard it before. When the guy scores three past me on Ultimate Team, I'm like, I hate this game. Why does he have Ronaldo in Div 6?
Yeah.
It doesn't make
And
sense.
Martin Tyler loves it. Three of the best. I have made them pay.
Do you remember will it be pain for Spain, or is this the Real Madrid or Real Deo?
Yeah, the Real Deo. That and Carlos Tevez with his bulldog-like approach always used to.
Oh, I think I remember that one.
back
Yeah,
in the day.
he's got quite a few others, to be fair.
Yeah, a few personal highlights from him, but yeah, happy for the hat trick. It feels like I'm doing a football post-match interview now, but yeah, happy for three.
Happy for 3 goals, but what really matters is we got the 3 points. The team did really well. I was like, mate, it's a cup match. It's like, oh, sorry, there. Mate, do you remember when Rashford did that? I think it was the FA Cup. It was so funny.
Just the worst generic, like the little prep before. It's like, just say they played well, 3 points, happy to go again and leave.
It's just like, yeah, the team did really well. I was like, yeah, I scored the goals, but someone else has played. I was like, mate, you duck 4 players and put in the top bins, mate. I don't think the pass mattered that much. But yeah, we could talk football all day, but we're here to talk politics and Brexit and the Labour Party, which are one thing we really don't like, and the other thing we may stop liking at some point.
Yes, the one we really, really want to like, but they are doing a fantastic job of making it horrendously difficult. So.
It's like,
well, I guess we'll dissect why that is and hopefully give him some pointers.
It's like, I really, really need you to do well, but you are so bad. Like, how? Like, Moyes, I want you to succeed and win the league, but, mate, we're in 7th place. Like, what is going on here?
Well, hopefully, if the Starmer team are listening, they can take a bit of this on board and.
Honestly, he's lucky. Andy Tate's not on his tail. Starmer, a monkey in a suit could do a better job. Yeah, anyways, we got questions from the audience, the best people to get questions from. So shouts out to the audience who've given us some really great questions.
They have, yeah. Thank you very much for sending those in. We've got a nice mix of questions and plenty to come from it. So, yeah, glad they contributed so much.
So we've got Cinderella's question, which is, can you elaborate from a historical context why the EU is seen as such a bad thing from some people's perspective? It seems they do not understand it's also a peace project. So do you want to start this one?
Yeah, I'll jump straight into it. So it's hard to kind of see, I guess quite a biased point of view with us. Obviously, we're quite pro-EU. We know it has its faults, but yeah, it's quite weird because he or she, Cinderella, mentions it started off as a peace project and to create that unity in Europe, so we don't see, repeats of the 20th century and the horrendous wars and conflicts and everything that unfortunately that entailed. So, I guess the thing to start with that Madge and I spoke about was foreigners being very Brexit, foreigners,
bloody foreigners coming here. There's a classic skit from that comedian. I can't remember his name, but I don't know if you've seen it, Alice. But it's like, bloody foreigners coming here, teaching us how to sew, etc. It's pretty funny. It makes me laugh every time.
No, it's a good. I think I've seen the skit, but what we were speaking about not too long ago about the idea that people don't really understand immigration, and it was very much a take control of our borders when that control was never gone. We never didn't have that. We always had that control. It was very easy to control the borders and skilled workers from abroad contribute horrendous amounts of money to the economy. It's fantastic how much they contribute, and I think a lot of people don't realise that contribution, should it be absent, would dent the British economy so much. And I think a lot of people just choose to, be ignorant to that fact that, there are people from overseas who can improve the economy, can improve our circumstances, when instead it's coming here, stealing houses, jobs, benefits, the classic kind of and xenophobic rhetoric that they spout so much. So yeah, just that failure to kind of comprehend that we need an influx of foreign workers in, you know, every department. The NHS wouldn't survive without foreign workers, for example. So we need those people to come in and actually contribute, which they do. So that's kind of one of the points, and we can kind of talk a bit more about that if you've got
Yeah, I
anything
mean,
to.
yeah. What I'd say is, we could have followed. I think, but the EU does have rules where if someone isn't actually working in that country, they can be told to leave. I think Belgium has that law where if you cannot sustain yourself economically or financially, excuse me, Belgium can get you to leave. So there is that. There was always that ability to do that, but Britain never took it because Tony Blair wanted a mass influx of people to come in to do the jobs that some British people weren't doing. Be it skilled or unskilled jobs. It's much easier. It's the classic in football, isn't it? Is yeah, you can promote from your youth academy, or you could get someone in who is already pretty good at that role. Be it NHS workers or anything in manufacturing, construction, etc. We put a massive emphasis on this country in academics when it should have been on vocational skills, really. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I don't know what you feel about this, Ellis, is that we don't have a lot of people with skills in things like construction, electrics, plumbing, all that kind of stuff, because most kids are put on to do academic stuff rather than vocational stuff. I don't know how much you agree or disagree with that, Ellis.
Oh no, I think that's a fantastic point, and I think you can even say, going back to you and I in school, there's so much pressure from even when we chose our options at the end of year 8 going into year 9 at my school, and there is such a big amount of pressure from the school to choose your triple sciences, history, geography, anything that involves academia. And the people who didn't want to do that and wanted to do, we did a construction course. It was almost like, here's all the great stuff you can do, and construction. Like, it's such a big, like you said, like a big push for academic study that, and I think from a school's point of view, they just want to go, 99% of our students went to university and studied X, Y, and Z, where instead they should be going, well, X amount went to university, but X amount have gone into apprenticeships or immediate employment, anything like that. And yeah, stuff like, construction, like you said, plumbing, electricians, mechanics, is that people in the UK don't do those jobs because they basically get peer pressured by schools and institutions like that to do academic subjects. And it's quite sad to see that we've almost rejected the idea that you can be intelligent in a different field. And I always say, like, I have a few friends who are mechanics. I say our intelligence isn't comparable because my intelligence is in stuff like academic, with history. His intelligence is more mechanics. I couldn't fix a car in the same way that he couldn't write a dissertation on, the Second World War. It's just something very vague. And we need to kind of go back a bit and say, well, actually, we do need these people to work in these industries. So we need to put that kind of offer back on the table, because there are a lot of kids who struggle with your maths, your sciences, your histories, your English, literatures and languages, and they need that outlet and those opportunities, which they're not getting.
Yeah, one of my personal favourites is they keep saying, white boys are really struggling in school. And I'm like, well, are you going to invest more in the schools then and put more support for students? They're like, no, it's just bloody foreign kids are getting all this help. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, and it's very much, what white working class boys are struggling. Oh, okay, so you want to help them? No, we're just going to say that they're struggling. Like, oh, okay, why don't you do something about it? Realize that these kids they sit in maths and they want to bang their head against the table because they don't get it. But you can also go, well, you're not very good at maths, but you might be good at this. Let's try you out on construction. Oh, you're really good at that. Okay, let's help you out. It's almost like you're bad at English and maths and science. Oh, okay, well, the school's just going to kind of forget about you and focus on the kids who are going to do well in those subjects.
Yeah, because they're so desperate to compete in that school league thing or whatever, especially when teachers have like classes of like 30 plus students. Like, you can't give the individual help that students need. Like, it's ridiculous how big class sizes are now. So you struggle to kind of get the expertise you need within the country, and therefore you definitely need foreign people to come in who actually have the skills your country needs. But then we get mad because there's not enough housing. Your kid can't get a school place, you can't see a doctor, you can't get a hospital appointment, when all the answers really stem back to the Conservative government. Like, the main reason why David Cameron couldn't refute a lot of the arguments when it came to immigration, when it comes to housing and NHS problems, is because he helped create the problems. So how's he going to be like, oh, it's not the EU's problem, it's, oh wait, that's my fault? No, I can't be saying that. I'm not stupid. I'm not a complete idiot. He's kind of stupid. We're not going to talk about the green cell stuff here, but not very intelligent. But that's the main reason why we need foreign people to come in. But people in this country don't like foreigners. This. I say people, I mean, like, there's a large amount of people who don't like foreigners, and that's one of the things that pushed the Brexit train over over the line, essentially, which is that the hatred of foreigners, the xenophobia of, yeah, we'll keep freedom of movement for us, but we'll get rid of it for other people. And that kind of freedom of movement being a key tenet within the EU is one of the reasons why people in the UK hate the EU, despite the fact that there are people, British people in Spain, that are angry that they need visas and stuff because freedom of movement is ended. And you're like, what did you expect was going to happen? Like, you're not special. Your red passport, or I guess now your blue passport, doesn't make you some sort of human being that can circumvent the rules. That's not how it works.
Yeah, and I think we'll come on to like that British entitlement a bit later on, because we've got another question as well about that. I think what we've just kind of spoken about that lack of education is quite a good segue to the next thing we spoke about, which is just an absence of education in general on the European Union. People didn't know what the EU was, and we did politics at A level, and we didn't do much on the European Union. Granted, ours was focused on British politics anyway, but the European Union is such a big part of British politics anyway that it should have been, I think, a bigger part of that. But we don't learn anything on the European Union. You don't, and people, was it people in like Cornwall or something who voted to leave and then realised that a lot of their fishing subsidiaries were going to get cut because they had no idea.
It was so bad. They rely on EU subsidies, right? And now it's been cut by about 95%, and they're really angry about it. And I'm like, the British government, the Tories don't believe in subsidies. So what made you think you were going to be special when they don't even fund the NHS? They were going to let you keep the money that you've gotten. Like, no. Like, that's not what they believe ideologically.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people just, like, people who voted to leave, who benefited from the European Union, basically went, oh, well, we'll still get our bits, won't we? And the European Union's going to go, well, no, obviously not. Like, I think British people want to have the benefits of everything without being a part of anything. Yeah. They want that enjoyment of, oh, well, I can have it, but I don't want to contribute to that.
I think they were just really naive in thinking, oh, right, our gross contribution is about 350 million. The net contribution is about half of that, so we'll get half the money we get back anyways, but we'll get all of it back, and therefore we can use that money to fund other things. And I'm like, do you genuinely believe the Conservative government would actually do that? And then we realise, wait, that's not even going to happen because there's a massive divorce bill, which none of the Brexiteers and even some of the Remainers didn't actually talk about because it was Project Fear.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with the European Union. In the UK, it was all Project Fear, and now it's actually happening. It's, you're spouting rubbish. Project Fear is still going on. Like, no. People are telling you the truth, and if you don't want to, there's such a big thing currently where people can't admit they've got it wrong. If people who actually went, oh, you know what, I actually voted for the wrong thing here, I'd like to push for some change. Maybe they want a better relationship with the EU or just to rejoin as a whole. But people have so much like ego and pride that we could be literally not being able to eat and drink, and people would go, well, it's better than being in the European Union, isn't it? And we see that with, I guess we'll kind of maybe mention it a bit later on, but you see that it's always well, it's bad with Boris, but we could have had it worse with Corbyn. Like, it's all that. No. It's always it could have been worse with him. Like, no, just say you don't have an argument. Say you got it wrong.
Have you seen that guy who's like, I'm not going to get the vaccine to trigger the libs? And I'm like, I can't tell if this is parody or not, but it's really funny. Have you seen that?
I haven't, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's
so funny. Point. He's like, I'm not going to have my vaccine to trigger the libs. And I'm like, mate, the only thing that's going to get triggered is your lungs when your lungs get lit on fire by COVID. Absolute fraud. Yeah, I think there's another misconception that the EU just deals with trivial stuff like bendy bananas, which I never understood that because bananas are bent. They're not straight, are they?
Well, I always thought that was quite an odd saying because they are, well, they're curved, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, but they are like. What I don't understand what her point was about bendy bananas and like how much meat do you need in a sausage? Like people do realize this stuff has to be regulated, right? Like someone has to say how much meat do you need in a sausage for it to be called a sausage. Like in America, they can't call certain things cheese; they call it cheese product because you need certain rules. Otherwise, you can call anything a sausage. Like when
Yeah,
it's not. Like it's ridiculous that people like come up with these are the issues and oh I'm tired of MEPs voting for this. Is like you do realize that someone has to vote for that sort of stuff, right? As trivial as it sounds, someone has to.
yeah, and I think like it. There's a show on YouTube called Food Wars, and they basically do like big restaurants in England or the UK and in America, and they compare like the calories, ingredients and stuff, and you'll see like the American ingredients is just like pages and pages of just awful things. There's so much more calories and salts, and it's so much worse. And I think, yeah, you do have to have those trivial things where the opinion goes, okay, well, we have to figure out what makes this product and what doesn't. And I think a lot of people, will go, oh, the chlorinated chicken, it won't be that bad. It's like, no, like American food product is horrendously bad in the same way that the healthcare is horrendously bad, but America can just push that on us because ultimately, and we'll come on to this later, Britain doesn't really have that much power. It's quite subservient to the US, and yeah, I think people just kind of got a bit lost with what the EU does as a whole, I guess, and quite
Yeah,
sad to see.
I think that brings on to failure to understand the EU Parliament and the voting system, which I'm not going to lie, I don't have tons of knowledge about, apart from the fact that they have, I think a proportional representation system. And, some of the stuff, I think the voting systems aren't the best when it comes to choosing commissioner. But at the same time, we have a system where you vote in the leader of a political party and they choose the cabinet and they pick, especially in the case of Boris Johnson, absolute morons to run governmental departments who have no experience in those fields. Like Liz Truss has no expertise in trade, yet she's our trade minister.
I
And
don't
so
think she
on.
has experience in anything at this rate. She's awful.
I mean, she does have experience in saying that we import way too much cheese and it's a disgrace, and apples and pears. And I'm like, what is your problem? Like, stop it. Like, we can't create, we don't have fruits throughout the whole year. We have to import stuff. Like, certain fruits don't grow in certain times of the year, Liz. Hate to break it to you. Try growing strawberries in the winter. It's not going to work.
Well, she's doing it in her garden, and she'll still be happy with her rubbish strawberries. She is
Yeah.
horrendous,
But
but
she can't grow
yeah,
strawberries, the fraud.
yeah. I think it's quite a complicated system, and like I visited the Parliament when I was in Belgium. It's really good. I definitely recommend going. But yeah,
Awesome.
it's a very complicated system, and I guess it doesn't make it easier because obviously there's so many countries involved in the logistics of having representatives from all those countries, and et cetera, et cetera. And it is quite a hard system. But again, there's no education on how it works. But then I think not many people really know how UK politics works.
Yeah.
They go and cast their vote. I voted for Boris. No, you didn't. You voted for the member of parliament for your constituency. That's what you did. But I think like you said, yeah, like our system is horrendous as well. Like it's all, who's my mate? Who can I trust? Okay, you can be defence. Okay, you can be health. Okay, you can be chancellor. Just because you're my friend and I know you won't backstab me.
Yeah.
I guess there's that like disenfranchised nature that people don't really get the EU how it works in the voting system, which I do get, and I kind of agree. There are some bits I'm a bit confused on as well. So it's hard to
Yeah.
kind of critique people
But,
for that.
but you can kind of learn it. I mean, I've watched YouTube videos on the past about it, and like sometimes you just forget, but like surely, the fact that what is the EU was trending a day after the referendum did startle me a bit. Like, did you guys do no research whatsoever?
Mm.
Probably. But yeah, I think that takes us on to protectionist cabal, which the EU is protectionist in itself. It doesn't like third countries selling goods to it. That's the reason why it has, things like tariffs and quotas, etc. But the whole point of being protection is you protect your own industries, be it financial stuff, manufacturing or agriculture. And right now I've done, I think a video went out today about how farmers are alarmed about a potential tariff-free deal with New Zealand and Australia. These farmers are going to be completely exposed because we're going to have mass imports from these countries, which are going to decimate local farming. That's the reason why you need protectionism. So that's an argument, Rees-Mogg used constantly, protectionism, and that's bad because these farmers thought they were going to have access to the EU single market whilst also having access to other countries around the world, where all you've done is lost out to the access with the EU single market, and you have to now compete with many different countries all over the world.
Yeah, and I think there was that whole, British produce is the best produce. Like, well, I mean, I don't know the value. I don't know if it is, but if you're going, there's so many countries that are making that produce, and you think, well, they're probably going to get it cheaper and better somewhere else. Yeah. Not to say our farmers aren't good farmers. I'm sure they're the best in the business. I don't know. I've never been on a farm, but yeah, it's that idea of, again, I always think it comes back to that entitlement of, no, the British is best. British manufacturing, British produce, British anything. It's the best, and we won't hear anything else. And it's like, no. Have some, have a reality check. It's not, and we need to accommodate for that. We need to accommodate the fact that there are local British farmers that are now thinking, I can't sell my produce, or, what's the point in me doing a harvest this year when I'm going to get nothing for it? It's just going to cost me money and time and effort when I could just, sell up, and they can put houses on my farm, and I can go get an office job.
And the other issue is that British farming, we do have higher standards than most other countries, but those higher standards do come at a cost. So even if we have the best product with reared well, free range, all this stuff, that costs more. And in a country which let's not get twisted now, some people in the UK are live in poverty. Some people live in extreme poverty, and some people are just about managing. If it's the case they can get cheaper Australian beef over more expensive but higher standard British beef, that's going to be tempting for a lot of people, and I'm not going to blame them for it. But if you can save some money in your weekly shop, why wouldn't you do it? So that's the other problem that a lot of farmers are going to have, especially if we start lowering standards for imports, which will likely happen to get a trade deal with countries like the US or maybe even Canada, for example. So yes, the EU is protectionist, but it protects the members, and we're not having that. We don't have that protection anymore. People like Liz Truss will happily sell the family silver for anything really. She doesn't care.
Yeah, and I think that's what people don't realise is like, she doesn't care. Like, that's the exact point. She doesn't care whether she's got being lobbied by British farmers who are going, oh, we can't sell our produce. She doesn't care at all because she's made her money off it. She's fine. She'll say, oh, this trade deal is the best trade deal in the history of forever, when in reality it's nothing. It'll contribute nothing to the economy and nothing to anyone. And we're going to get to that. We could well get to that point where the cost of British produce is too high, and even for someone like me who works a decently paid job, I would go, well, if I can save a couple of quid here and a couple of quid there on non-UK produce, I'll have to do it, because at the end of the day, like, that's the way the economy is. I'm gonna get a better price. I might sacrifice some quality, but at the end of the day, money is king, as horrible as it is.
I need to eat, that's the way it is.
Yeah, and I want to buy as much as I can for as little as I can. And whilst I would love to have more money and support local produce and local butchers, I just financially don't have that opportunity. And maybe one day I will, and I'd love to be able to go out there and go to a farm or a butcher's and actually get the proper local produce and support local economies. But for now, that chance is only for a very small amount of people, which we are not helping local people out by giving them the chance to sell their produce to other local people. We're just going, oh well, yeah, just get a mass shop, and yeah, you should buy British, and then let me buy British then, but I can't because you're not helping me.
Yeah, that kind of is more of the right wing, I think, perspective. Protectionist cabal. It's more of the Rees-Mogg type perspective. If we talk about socialism in one country, what would you say about that. It's more of the left wing kind of argument. I think that's something more Corbyn would have spoken about. If you want to take that one.
Yeah, so I guess the idea of socialism in one country is obviously it's quite a Stalinist idea. Obviously, we're not going to get onto
We're not saying Corbyn is Stalinist. Let's be serious.
no,
Let's be real here. Yeah, I just want to make that point just in case anyone's like, "Oh, you said Corbyn's like Stalin." Like it's kind of. I think it's an idea of Stalin's, right?
yes. I I've just got it up on Google actually because I couldn't remember the year it was. It was 1924, and adopted as state policy. So the idea was that the country would essentially focus on itself. That looking outside the country wasn't wasn't a bad thing. It was more the idea of you put your country first and make it able to be self-sufficient. A focus on agriculture, which was going back to the Soviet, was a big part of the early Soviet Union. Was agriculture was basically king. But from a socialist point of view, it's all about building up the strength of socialism in that one country and not being outward looking, which is quite, I guess it's also quite a xenophobic idea. But it's not from, I'd say, a modern day socialist point of view. It's not the idea that we don't want to talk to other countries and we're not going to look outwards. It's more the idea of, okay, well, this collective organization isn't beneficial to socialism when we have to be socialism first and then everything else comes second. And I know quite a lot of left-wing people were against the European Union, which makes sense when we look at socialism in one country, just because obviously socialism is not in power in the UK, so the focus is on keeping that one country where you can control it, whereas the European Union, you're liable to outside influence, which is true to an extent with the European Union. You do have other countries that contribute, but socialism in one country is just all about focusing on the one country, kind of not having that vision to look at other countries and engage as much, where you can just be self-sufficient and focus on the political ideas, and everything else will come second as a result.
Yeah, I think it's just about working within their own country. Working, that means getting people employed, having a decent standard of living, that kind of thing. Just be wary of outside influences and outside actors. I think it's an interesting idea. It's not one that would definitely wouldn't work in the modern world, because we do need other countries for trade. I couldn't figure out what I wrote here when I said outsourcing and low-ish for workers. I think I meant low-ish standards maybe for workers in other countries. I mean, the EU has like a baseline for working standards, but it's not the highest. And obviously, we've seen a decent amount of outsourcing of, I think, British products and jobs, etc., from the UK, which is a left-wing argument as well, right? That we've seen car manufacturing, I think, move to countries like Slovakia, which has lower wages and lower standards than the UK. So this is another left-wing argument, I think, that people have made, right?
Yeah, and kind of going back to the point where you just mentioned about UK-based businesses moving to other countries. Yeah, going back, similar to kind of, like a big argument was that wages in the UK are higher, so as a result, you pay for the premium of it being UK made. You can look at cars or like produce as well. So when it gets outsourced to those countries, like Slovakia and predominantly like Eastern Europe and Southern Eastern Europe, is that because the wages are less, it makes so much sense for big businesses to go, well, why don't I just outsource it? Because for the price I'll pay for my workers, I can pay in another country for workers and shipping and make more money. So I guess, the European Union does have that, like, that base standard, but it's not, it can be outsourced.
Yeah, the thing is, though, to counter that kind of argument is we have seen a lot of business come to the UK as a result of being the EU. In the EU, London became the financial centre of Europe. That wouldn't have happened without a system like the EU, because each other country would have had their own kind of financial services to an extent. Large financial centres, like they do in Dublin, Frankfurt, etc. But these would have been far stronger, I think, and the City of London would have been far weaker. And stuff like outsourcing, we've seen we had a lot of Japanese car manufacturers, set up shop within the UK. So, we might have lost certain industries or certain factories because of joining the EU. They might have joined a EU member with lower standards or, lower wages, but we did actually get in a lot of companies as well. Despite us having higher standards, for whatever reason, we had Nissan, Honda, and many other Japanese brands that chose the UK over other countries, which I always found a bit interesting and a bit strange, because some of these factories and stuff, they need a certain level of expertise, people to come in. So I guess it kind of does make sense for them to move to certain areas which may have those expertise. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I guess when you originally think about it, it's like, oh, it's very surprising that Japanese car companies would choose the UK. But then I guess historically the UK has like a very rich car and racing history, like, and it still does today. We're obviously not far from us. We've got Silverstone, and a lot of teams are based there. And I think there's a lot of parts of the UK that had massive manufacturing businesses in car making, which sadly those brands have kind of died off a bit, or they've become quite luxury brands. But yeah, that there is that manufacturing skill in the car industry that the UK does have. And I guess when you think about it, like, it does make sense for Japanese car manufacturers to put their manufacturing in the UK, because obviously Japan focuses a lot on finance and tech as well. So I guess manufacturing isn't the top of their priority. So it makes sense to find that, like in Sunderland and places that do have that history of car manufacturing, they've got the facility, they've got the capabilities, people know what to do. So it does make sense to bring that business here, and being part of the European Union does make that so much easier to negotiate those deals and be protected as well by the European Union. But hopefully we can kind of keep the manufacturing, because British people love their cars, they love their racing.
It's gone, bro. Like, I hate to break it to you, but it's kind of gone. I think Japanese car makers they're either going to try and increase kind of what they make here, or they're just going to go. I can just see them going at some point.
Especially to places like Germany that have massive facilities for car manufacturing, and I wouldn't be surprised. But it's a shame, because British people love cars and racing and stuff like that. So it'd be nice to keep that. But it's a dying industry, unfortunately.
It's dying in the UK. I think it'll do well in other countries. We'll go on to another kind of left-wing idea, which is that it kind of stops nationalisation and state aid. So as far as I know of, the EU rules around state aid are the same or similar to the WTO rules around state aid. So that's not the best argument I've heard from certain people, and it stops nationalisation. We still have the NHS, and if I'm not wrong, there is a French energy company that's 50 or 49% owned by the French government. We've also seen EU states own or have shares in train companies that are so strong that they have train businesses in the UK, and they charge us more in the UK, so then they could take some of that money and give it back to their respective governments. I think Momentum did a really good video on it in 2017, I believe. I don't know if you've seen it, Alice. It was hilarious and painfully accurate. But we pay more for trains in this country so that certain businesses can make a lot of money, and certain EU nations can make profit off us, because why not? Because we let them.
Yeah, and I don't think I've seen the video, but I know the point you're making about they charge more here and then cut the cost elsewhere. And it's like, it's the fact that, like, I don't really get the train very often, but when I do, I always think, like, what? It's an awful service. You're not guaranteed a seat. It's probably going to be late. It's going to stop offloads, and it's just going to be an unpleasant journey from start to finish. And the prices are so bad. And like, when I was in Latvia, I took a train from Riga to Saukralis, I think it's called, by the sea. And it's about a 45-minute train. And I think it cost me about £6 for a return. And it was such a nice, the train was nice, a lot of space, the windows would open. And it was, really hot, sunny day, but the breeze was coming through, and, the chairs were nice, had loads of space. And I was like, £6? This trip in England would probably cost me £50. Like,
and you ain't getting a seat,
bad.
And you have to deal with some douchebags on the train.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to stand the whole way, and it's gonna be uncomfortable, and it's just gonna be a horrendous trip. And it's just crazy that people are so willing to, like, let that happen, I guess. And Yeah, and kind of going back to the point on, I guess, state aid, not too similar, but I think the UK has a very negative outlook on foreign aid as well. So I think it's almost like we go, why don't we help British people? And we go, okay, well, let's feed hungry kids. No, not like that. And it's like, what do you want people? We're trying to help British kids, and now you're not liking it. Pick
Yeah,
one.
that's a classic. I love that so much. He's like, no, no, not like that. It's like, why don't you just protest peacefully like Colin Kaepernick did when he took a knee? He's like, no, you can't do that. That's sports. You can't. It's sports, not politics. It's sports. And yeah, I think that yeah, I just don't agree with those arguments. I think the EU being pro austerity is a strong argument, especially after what happened with Greece. Greece, a country that was already a bit financially unstable before they joined the EU. I think the treatment from of Greece by the EU Central Bank and also the IMF was really bad. But we'll stick with kind of the EU stance on it, which was, they didn't bail out Greece; they bailed out, bankers who lent money to Greece, which they shouldn't have done. They bailed them out of risky loans, really, and it's the Greek taxpayer who has to pay for it. So, it's going to be it's going to be a very tough time for anyone to defend what the EU did to Greece. But yeah, I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, I agree, and I think even the most ardent of European Union supporters can't really justify how horrific the austerity in Greece was, and I think it's sad to see because, I guess from the UK, like Greece is such a popular destination for a lot of people, and there's a lot of problems, and the fact that EU implemented such harsh austerity measures, not on the people that really caused those problems, but that's the problem. It's always the taxpayer. It's always your normal person who just wants to work his 9 to 5, or is a waiter at a restaurant, or works in the corner shop. They're the one that has to foot the bill. And yeah, the European Union didn't do anything to help itself, and Greece was such a horrible situation, and still quite sad to see now that obviously they're still trying to recover from that.
Yeah. Mass forced privatization, stuff like that. I mean, some of it was the IMF, but the IMF are another choke institution that push austerity in. But the thing is, people in the UK can complain, but same Tory government that implemented massive amounts of austerity in the UK. Post the 2010 election, so I'm not going to hear it from any Tory supporters who are like, "Oh, but look what Greece did. Look what the EU did to Greece." Are like, mate, you would love to have done the same thing. Get out of here.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to listen to them on austerity, considering the fact that community centres around where we are closing, and
It's bad.
And there's just nothing, and I think people are so used to it that the government could just make everything so much worse, and they would just go, oh, okay, like almost like Stockholm syndrome. They love the one that hurts them the most, and yeah, I wouldn't take anything austerity related from a Tory supporter, considering how much pain their government has inflicted on the people of this country.
So the final kind of thing that I want to talk about is immigration. We spoke about with foreigners, but I think kind of left wing perspective. I watched an old clip of Andy Burnham giving a speech where he talks about immigration causing wage suppression and all this stuff. I'm going to cover it in a video at some point. And I was like, Andy, mate, if you are so worried about wage suppression, why don't you push the government to increase wages? Huh?
Yeah, it's like,
come on,
here's
Andy.
this great idea. Increase wages.
Like, if you're scared, like EU workers are pushing down wages, which I think the amount people said was about between 1% and 3%, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. And the classic argument that by employing lower paid staff, you keep prices down, which isn't always true, because most of the time it's the boss man making a lot of money. Well, I suppose in this modern world we can say the boss woman potentially making the money from that, and it's not to keep prices down. But now we've seen in the UK there's mass amounts of vacancies from unskilled and lower skilled and higher skilled jobs, managers, head chefs, and that we can't fill the roles there, and it takes a long time to become a good front of house team member. Leading a team of waiters or waitresses is really difficult. So the arguments that people made, especially Andy Burnham, I'm ashamed of you, bro. Like, when I saw that speech, I was like, Andy, what are you doing? Like, honestly. And a lot of left wingers make this argument that wage suppression is an issue. Right wingers pretend to care about it, but they really don't. But here's a big one for you, Andy. Just try and raise wages to a living wage, and then you'll see those jobs being done by people here. Come on, mate.
Yeah, I agree, and it's like, it's almost like a cop out of, well, it's the foreigners that are making everything that are decreasing like how much we can pay. It's like, no, but you have the ability to put that pressure on to raise wages, and it's like, it's not a hard, people, oh, they're getting £10 an hour for flipping burgers. It's like, but people don't realize how much money gets, you invest in people, they invest back.
Yeah.
I guess it's I think it's quite a Keynesian
I mean, it makes sense though, and it's bottom up economics. You give people at the lower end money. That's one of the main arguments behind UBI, isn't it? You give poorer people money, and they'll spend it in the economy. Like, there's a reason why, like, certain more kind of not even luxury items, but nicer items don't get bought when there's a recession. People don't have money for it, and that impacts manufacturing and stuff like that. If you can't have money for manufactured goods, that creates more problems in the chain. People within manufacturing lose their jobs, and those products can't get made. It's not a hard one to figure out, and I don't understand why people act so dumb over it, especially someone like Andy Burnham, who became a bit of a northern hero during the pandemic. And I saw that speech, I was like, Andy, all my respect's gone for you, pal. Like, it's gone real quick, because that was a fraudulent argument using right-wing talking points, and to bash immigrants as well. Come on, mate.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I find with kind of like a universal basic income, and I know there's like when they had talks of like giving people like 500 quid, like as like I guess similar to like the stimulus checks in America. Like, if you give your average kind of working class person 500 quid, they're not going to think, right, I'm going to invest that, I'm going to save that.
Cryptos.
They're probably going to get themselves a takeaway, go to the local pub, have a load of drinks, and probably buy themselves like a new fridge. Like, they're going to spend probably every penny of that, and probably more. They'll go buy new clothes for them and their kids, or they'll go out to restaurants and treat themselves to a nice little meal, or like a nice date night with a partner. Like, they're gonna put that money straight back into the economy. Like, you give me 500 quid, I'm not gonna go, okay, well, here's £500, I can keep that and sit on it and get my 0.01% interest a year. Like, I'm just gonna go, oh, I've got 500 quid here, right? Okay, I might upgrade the PC, I might buy myself a new monitor, headset. Like, I'm gonna put that money straight back in. Like, I guess it's quite a odd idea that we're so against that. But
and the other thing is, like, even if you use that money to pay your rent or mortgage, someone might need that money, otherwise they might end up being homeless, and that comes with a massive cost as well. It comes to a cost of them obviously losing their home is very traumatic. Maybe a cost to their family, a cost to the council, because then the council might have to give them social housing. They've already done studies in other countries where homelessness actually costs more than giving someone a place to live, because of the cost of crime and health problems and other stuff like that. So it's just ridiculous, like, all this stuff like that stems from like wage suppression and not wanting to give people a living wage. Like, it's not hard to figure out, especially you, Andy Burnham, so-called lefty. Like, I was so embarrassed when I watched that video. It's like, dude, I actually liked you and you had to ruin it. Like, past you in 2016 has ruined current you. And the thing is, I reckon he still has those views, because he's the one saying the red wall seats would have been safe under me. Like, unless you think just because you're from the, I think he's from Liverpool or Manchester, wherever he's from, doesn't mean Northerners are going to vote for you, bud. Unless you're going to make those sort of right-wing talking point arguments, which if you did, you would have hemorrhaged votes in the South. And when I do that video, I will talk about that, where if you were going to push, a left-wing kind of Brexit, or just Brexit in general with the Labour Party, you would have absolutely hemorrhaged votes to the Lib Dems and the Greens. Like, that's a suicide strategy on its own.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that.
You're not Bernie Sanders, pal. You can't say, I would have won in 2019. Don't do it. There's only one man who can make that argument. That's Bernie Sanders in America. You can't make that argument, buddy. But yeah, we've kind of gone off topic a bit, but I feel like it's kind of relevant to an extent. Is there anything you want more? Sorry, is there anything more you want to add, Ellis?
No, I think that covers about everything. Hopefully that kind of helps you out a bit. Cinderella, obviously quite a long bit we kind of spoke about, but hopefully that kind of gives some ideas as to, why people are anti-EU, and hopefully you can kind of make you think about, those ideas that people don't like the EU, and I guess the neglect of the education system and kind of all the things we've gone over. So hopefully that kind of makes some sense. But
I think it's a really good question, and I think there was a lot to talk about. So I think it's fair that we went into depth on this one, because there are a lot of reasons why people like the EU. Most of them very stupid, apart from maybe some of the voting stuff and the EU being pro-austerity. Like, I'll give you those. I'll happily give you those. But the rest of it, I'm like, I'm not sure. The idea that foreigners are making decisions on our behalf, well, you could argue that in Scotland, that it's English people making the most of the decisions, therefore they want independence. Or you can even argue if you live in the north of England or wherever, those damn Southerners are making decisions on our behalf, we don't like it. It's a very reductionist argument, and you'll get to a point where you'll get mad at your local council because they're making decisions you don't like, and you just want it to be your house making decisions, or just you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, we move to Christian Cruise's question, which there's a lot of a monologue I have to go through, but it's a good question and some good quotes saying that Danish Finance Minister Kristin Jensen said in 2017 that Britain was not in a position to bully Denmark or other members of the European Union during the Brexit negotiation process, Politiken reported. Jensen added, there are two kinds of European nations. There are small nations and there are countries that have not realised they are small nations. The question is, how does he see Britain's place in the world now? Will Brexit finally force Britain to realise that the sun has set over the empire and they are just Britain? If Britain didn't do anything to destroy the cool Britannia brand, they would still be able to influence the world, but now the world sees Boris and Britain as a joke and only deals with it according to its economic size, which even then we're still getting a raw deal from certain countries, I would add. So I think his main question is, how do we see Britain Britain's place in the world now? I've absolutely butchered that. I'm very sorry. I think there might be a typo in the question, which I should have fixed that. But I guess, how do we see Britain's role in the world now? And I guess, how does Britain see its role in the world now? Is that, if that's cool?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that was a fantastic question, Christian.
Yeah, Christian,
well.
yeah. And sorry, Alice, just to butt in one more time, I think, when the Great Danes put out a statement like, don't think you can bully us, I'd be wary of that because from what I remember in some of the history books, the people from Denmark were not to be messed with. Also the Nords, but their relationship with the EU is a bit different, but mighty Denmark, the Great Danes. So what would you say is, how do you see Britain's role in the world? And then we'll move on to, how does Britain see its role in the world?
Well, kind of the notes I've made from that is I kind of thought about there's still like this hangover of the British Empire.
It's a long
people
hangover.
Still,
really
people
long
still,
hangover.
yeah, and people still have that idea of, like, oh, well, we're Great Britain, we conquered the world, we did everything, we've, name a country, we've been there, we've done it, like, we've got everything. And I think people still have that idea in their head that, we are Great Britain. And you still see people, invoking like your Blitz spirit, Churchill, British bulldog, it's a bulldog-like approach. And that doesn't exist. Like, and I guess from someone who, us who are British, we realise that Britain is no better than your Denmarks, than France, Latvia. Just crunching on the top of my head, there's no difference between those countries. We, obviously, well, we're better at football. We're not better at football at Denmark. They beat us last time, so we can't even use that anymore. But I think people still have the idea that Britain is Great Britain, and it's like, no, we're just Britain now. Like, accept that we're not a major world player, and understand that, and we can work with our position, not trying to sit at the big boy table when we've got our little boy trousers on.
It's a bit of a weird one to end on, I'm not going to lie. I'll give you that. So it's a very Ellisism there. Big boy table, small boy trousers, That's an Ellisism if I've ever heard one. But yeah, I kind of agree that, we're not, as a point that I make constantly, we're not Big Boss anymore from Metal Gear. We are not that guy. Like, we are not going to stroll into Russia, take out Metal Gear and get out. Like, that's not going to happen. Yes, we had an empire. Yes, it was powerful, but the Ottomans had an empire. The Nords had an empire. The Germans had an empire. The French,
Mongols.
The Mongols. Yeah, Mongols had a giant empire. Romans, you name it. A lot of countries had empires, and those empires are gone. That time is over. Like, what more can you say? Like, you can choose to use, our, the soft power we have, the culture, the sports, and all that stuff. The Premier League is a massive soft power boon for the UK. We can use that sort of thing, that kind of image. But, realistically, we're getting bullied by Australia and New Zealand in trade talks because we're desperate now to look like we're doing well. We're the person who's broken up with someone who's like, oh no, I'm doing great. I've moved on real quick. I've got all these other people I'm talking to. It's like, you're getting used power. It's like, no, I'm not, man. No, I'm not. Like, that's the person we are now, right? Like, we are getting used by Australia. They're going to mug us for a trade deal. That's already happening. New Zealand, relatively small country that's dealt with the pandemic phenomenally, especially compared to us. We
Yeah.
still see ourselves as, kind of the leader of the Commonwealth and stuff like that. But these countries have moved on.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Ellis.
I was gonna, what you just said is a fantastic point. Like, all those countries have moved on, and we haven't. We still have that idea of like, no, 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 like, we own these countries. We head the Commonwealth, and all the Commonwealth countries have gone, oh, we don't really care anymore. Like, we're over it. Like, yeah, the UK flag's on our flag, but we don't really care. Like, we're Australians, not Commonwealthers. And
Yeah.
it's a great point you made, and that, yeah, I just wanted to interject.
And some of these nations are kind of not mega strong, but they are doing well in their own right. New Zealand, Australia, Canada. These are all great countries that have had to deal with the big leagues when it comes to trade. They've had to deal with countries like China, deal with the USA. They've got veterans when it comes to trade. We don't, because we were reliant on the EU because we were part of that club. We had guys like Barnier to mug, other trade people off when they talk about, the EU's population size and, the EU GDP per capita. Now we're the ones getting hit by Barnier. The TCA, it does benefit the UK a lot, but it benefits the EU more, I'd argue, because we have a trade deficit with the EU. They trade more with us than we do with them. So having tariff-free access is better for them. We didn't get it for services, which is the thing that we export more to the EU. So that tells you all you need to know. We got absolutely smashed in those EU negotiations to the point where I think I saw today, Lord Frost said we accepted the Northern Ireland Protocol under duress. We were forced to accept it. Well, if that's the case, then it does show you how kind of weak the UK is compared to the EU. But the fact that we're getting mugged off by Australia and New Zealand does show you that the UK's place is not amongst the kind of the top countries in the world, because we haven't accepted where we are now, which is we are not a tier 1 country anymore. You could argue tier 1 countries are, China and the USA. What do you think of that, Alice? I think those are the only top 2 dons, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree in terms of, I guess, like, economic size. They are the big players ultimately. They're kind of the dictators of the world markets, and I think kind of a lot of Great Britain as a whole kind of failed to realise that internationalisation has progressed so much, and the international market and the international world is evolving so much, but it's like we've dug our heels in and gone, no, we're number one. It's like, yeah, we're number one when we look in the mirror at ourselves. We're the only person we're number one to is us. We're not a big player. And a lot of people would go, oh, Denmark's inferior, based on its size and international power. But you think, like, no, like, us and Denmark are sat next to each other. We're both great countries, but we're not the US and China.
Yeah, and so I just want to say that's one of the reasons why the EU exists, right? As a bloc, you are much stronger. Individually, US states aren't the strongest, apart from probably New York, California, and maybe a couple others. But as a united kind of states, or whatever you want to call it, they are very strong. They have, a decent GDP per capita for the most part. That gives them good trade leverage. The EU the same. They have countries that are very strong, but there are countries that are poorer, but they are on the come up. And by being part of a bloc, you are way stronger. It's if we didn't have the EU, for example, it would be easier for the US to pick off countries like maybe Poland or whoever, countries that aren't as economically strong. But by being part of the bloc, you can get much better trade leverage out of countries like the US and China. There's a reason why when Donald Trump went with a trade war with the EU, he didn't do that great from it. And even now, how many countries want to do a trade war with the EU? Not many, but the US got into a bit of a trade war with the UK, and other countries have as well. And as an individual kind of state now, we are far weaker when it comes to dealing with the big countries, population-wise, especially the ones that have a high GDP per capita. We're going to get mugged off by India in trade negotiations as well. They puffed up a little £1 billion trade deal and commercial deals, which seemed great on paper, but in 2016 we signed a £9 billion commercial deal. So the main problem the UK has, I think, I don't know how much you agree with this, Ellis, we have an inflated image of ourselves, and we are so desperate to make people believe that we are running at trade deals desperately, trade deals that are going to decimate the UK when it comes to certain sectors, just for that facade of looking great. They'll
Yeah,
happily sell out. They'll happily sell us out for these deals to make us look good, when that's simply not the case. We are still pretending we're this big empire that can do trade deals with anyone. I guess a best analogy would be we at Manchester United. We're pretending we can sign, players like Erling Haaland and Ronaldo and stuff like that, but realistically we can't. And some of these countries, some of these players will take advantage of us. That's the nature of where we are now, that we've allowed ourselves into this situation. We are not that country that had a sprawling empire. We are the sick man of Europe, and countries will take advantage of us like that. And to be fair, they have every right to, because it's the negotiator's responsibility to do the best for their client, which is their country. Sorry, Alice, I don't know what more you want to add to that.
no, I think it's I guess kind of from all my notes, like I'm kind of, I guess, finished on topic, but just what you said about the puffed up image, I think is a fantastic analogy. Like, yeah, we still have the idea of being like the really big player, in terms of both on a personal level, people to people. There are still a lot of people who go, oh no, Great Britain, we fly the flag, we'll conquer anything we need to, and we could go to war with America tomorrow and we'd beat them. Like, no, we won't. We're a small country. It's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong with being proud to be British. There's nothing. I'm not very patriotic, but I wouldn't diminish someone who is. But we need to kind of accept who we are, and I think, like you said about the trade deals, is that like we're desperate. We're running the trade deals, hoping for something, and then going to the government ministers are then briefing the Daily News and the papers are going, yeah, did a great deal. That's worth 2 billion. It's like, yeah, but 2 billion essentially is nothing. We need so much more than that. And I think, yeah, people still have that, the puffed up idea. I think is a great analogy. And going back to Christian and Denmark and what, the finance minister came out and said, he's ultimately spot on. I wouldn't disagree with the word he said. And I don't know much about Denmark, but you've got my respect, Denmark. I'll have to come visit sometime.
I was going to say, what do you think? How does the UK kind of see itself now? How does Britain see itself? What would you say to that? And when are we going to realise that the sun has set on the empire? We are just Britain anymore. We are just Britain now.
I think I think Britain's image of Britain comes from a faux patriotism. We think of people who are great patriots. Nigel Farage, Boris Johnson, yeah, they're proper British lads. Well, Nigel Farage has a French name and a German passport, and Boris Johnson's
I think
name
his German
is like
passport got rejected. To be fair, I think they
did
didn't.
it?
I don't think they gave him one. They gave his kids one though.
Yeah, they can have one. It's fine. And Boris Johnson, born in America, called Alexander Boris de Pfeffel. I can't speak French.
I think it's de Piffle. Yeah.
Ah, nice one. Yeah, these people aren't patriots. They shove patriotism down your throats because they're not patriots, but they want you to go, Britain, rule Britannia, fly the flag. They don't care about being proud to be British. And I think a lot of people in England don't care to be British. They just want a reason to go, it's illegal to fly a British flag out. They'll post it on Facebook, get a load of shares and comments. And it's like, I can't believe that the police have made it legal. And it's like, no, no one cares. Fly a flag out. But national, I guess, in America, you see flags everywhere, and people are like, oh yeah, USA. We just don't have that, and it's okay. We don't have to be massively patriotic and screaming the national anthem and all that. You can just enjoy being British. There's nothing wrong with it, but you haven't got to shove your patriotism down the throats. And people have subscribed to that idea of, being patriotic means, blindly following the UK and to do whatever it wants to do and singing Britannia rules the waves and thinking we're better than everyone else when we're not.
Yeah, I think. But what do you think? When do you think people realise that the sun has set on the empire? How long? If I was going to say, give me a time frame or give me a scenario, what could happen that's realistic? When do you think people realise that kind of it's done? It's over.
I think we would need a big revisionist history, in the sense of we would need to begin the process of educating people that the empire, whilst contributing some good things, did a lot of bad. And you don't really get taught that much about, the separation of peoples and the slavery triangle and enforced famines. And you don't really learn that. You just learn that We went to every country, we took some spices, everything was friendly, and we went home.
And we built roads in countries.
Yeah, we went to the country, improved it, and left. Like, no, we killed people, we murdered people, we stopped people. We committed some of the worst acts in human history. But people don't want to get taught that, and we need that revisionist history to go. We're actually going to educate people now. And I think until someone, a prime minister, most likely, is brave enough to actually go, the British Empire wasn't good for a lot of people. Yeah, it was great for Britain, but it was terrible for so many countries. Until we have someone that can kind of admit that, stand up and go, we're going to change the narrative, we're going to work with those countries, and we're going to, I'm not saying pay them billions in reparations. I'm saying educate our people and get them to realize the damage that was done and how we can make sure we don't do that again. But I think, yeah, I would say a prominent politician, probably a prime minister, who has that revisionist idea would have to do that. But I don't think anyone's really brave enough, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this is going to be a bit too quote unquote woke for people. So are you saying that's when we're going to have a bit of sort of understanding that the sun is set on the empire once there's kind of revisionist history?
I think so. Yeah, I think once we kind of have that education of people, that's when the tide will start to turn and people will go, oh, the empire is dead. But I think until that point, a lot of people will look back and go, we ruled most of the world at one point, and I think you need to get the idea that we did, but we don't now. We need to live in the present. We need to work on our trades and our position on the planet. And I think, yeah, if I were to guess when people would kind of realize that sun has been set, I would say a big revisionist history movement. But again, I wouldn't be confident of any time soon.
Yeah, I would say maybe even independent Scotland as well, but even then, I'm not sure. I don't think it's going to happen because Gen Xers seem like they're as bad as Boomers for the most part when it comes to this sort of stuff. So I couldn't put a time frame on it for sure. But I think once we start seeing the full impact of Brexit and we start seeing all the problems, I think that will be a moment where people realise maybe our time in the sun is actually over and maybe has been for a while. But again, I'm not too sure about that. Sorry, I couldn't fully answer your question there, Christian Cruz. But it's a great question, to be fair. The problem is there's a lot of speculation I think needed to answer it. I do find the bit about the the Danish finance minister saying don't think you can bully us, because to be fair, he was right. We tried to do that and we got murked. So yeah.
Fantastic question, Christian. You've got a great name, Christian Cruz, and if you are Danish, I don't know any Danish, but come on, Denmark.
You have great biscuits and pastries, as far as I know of.
Yeah, well, you do. So I guess we'll have to pop over and sample a few. But that's a future travel video coming to Big Match Studios.
One day we'll go there. But like, oh, these pastries are pretty good, aren't they? Like, we'll buy one of those tins. It's like, yo, there's sewing needles in here. That ain't right. We'll go on to we'll go into a kind of Labour and Brexit question, which is what is Labour's Brexit position and what, in our opinion, should it be? So Ellis, you want to go for this because, yeah.
I would answer your question with a question. Well, no, with a statement and say I don't think Labour even knows what its Brexit position is anymore. It's just been horrendous. There's no direction at all, and I think we'll come on to that a bit later on about a lack of Labour direction. But it's like Labour don't seem to know. They kind of just vote. I think I from what I see, I think Labour just want Brexit to be out of the news. I don't think they care for it anymore, and I think that's quite sad that they've kind of dropped such a prominent position they had, and it almost seems like they're like a Labour Brexit is just a Tory Brexit, and I'd be happy to be proved wrong, but it kind of seems like they don't care anymore.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I mean, I've not seen anything sort of policy-wise what Labour would do differently. Keir Starmer voted for Boris Johnson's deal without even reading it, which I find really stupid. Like from whatever point of view you want to look at that from a political point of view, where you're going to put yourself in this position where you can't criticise the Brexit deal because you voted for it, or kind of whatever other view you want to look at it, which is that you've just supported Boris Johnson achieve Boris Johnson's goal for the last couple of years. Like, it's very stupid. I genuinely don't understand why he voted for Boris Johnson's Brexit deal, and it does very much feel like the Labour Party do want the Brexit to go as an issue, because the problem is, and I think we'll talk about it a bit later, Labour don't know how to bridge the gap between red wall voters or, Brexit voters, and also, sort of Remainers as well. They can't figure it out, because whichever stance they take, they're kind of screwed, because if they're trying to appeal more to Leavers, they'll hemorrhage voters potentially to the Lib Dems and the Greens. And if they don't appeal to kind of Brexiteers or that, group of people, then they lose out more to the Conservative Party. And because we don't have a PR system, we have a first past the post system, you have to win constituencies. And that's another problem, where some of these people who do support Brexit live within the Red Wall and kind of other parts of England, whilst Remainers are, I think, predominantly in the south, right? So that's another issue kind of Labour has. They cannot figure out what they're meant to be, what people want enough, and it's just not working. They don't have any idea. There's no leadership. Even in, under Corbyn, 2019 they wanted a referendum on Brexit. That did not fly well with people. In 2017 they pushed for kind of a left exit of the EU, which I think if they ran on that in 2019 they would have done a lot better. They still had the problem of Boris Johnson having the withdrawal agreement, which Boris Johnson said was a Brexit deal, which we knew it wasn't true. But I feel like Labour always feel like they're walking on eggshells when it comes to Brexit, and they genuinely have no idea what to do. I don't know how much you agree or disagree with that.
The walking on eggshells point, I think, is a fantastic point, and I fully agree with that. I think it almost seems like they're too scared to say, not just in Brexit, I guess in general, is that they seem too scared to do anything, and I'll probably mention this again later on, but was it Jonathan Ashworth who was on the news recently, and he basically didn't, was asked what Labour stood for, and he basically didn't answer it. People aren't expecting a full manifesto. They just want to know what the party stands for. You could literally just say, we stand for, integrity, just some really vague terms, but, equality, integrity, national pride, just rubbish like that. Just put some things out there. Don't just go, don't know, really. It's infuriating.
I mean, he could just say, look, we're going to look at getting SPS agreements because we want to sort out the issues with Northern Ireland, because we don't want to see more violence there. Stuff like that, really, where, you can get sort of mutual agreements with the EU to resolve certain issues and keep our standards high, etc. You can even lie and say, look, we can get a trade deal with Australia whilst also keeping our food standards high, because no one's going to call you out on that lie. Because you can just, like, when they're like, well, Boris Johnson can't get it, it's like, well, my name's not Boris Johnson, is it? I'd put a competent team in to get the deal through. I wouldn't sell out farmers like they are now. Like, you can kind of lie on this one. I'm not advocating it very much, but you can just say, look, I'll get a deal with New Zealand, no problem. We're not going to lower food standards or give them tariff-free access. We might look at lowering tariffs, but we're not going to give them absolute tariff-free access because we support our British farmers. Who's going to pull you up on that? Because they can't, unless they can enter of the multiverse, they won't know you're not telling the truth, right?
Yeah, and I think that's when you kind of had that political savviness of going, oh yeah, we'd do this, no problems, we'd do great things for the British people and British farmers, and people would go, oh, they would do some good things for the British people, actually, I saw it on the news. You have to plug that and say it over and over again, and I think with Brexit, like, there's a lot of Brexit fatigue, and I don't think that's a problem. I think that's okay. Like, you're allowed to be tired of we've had 5 years of everyday Brexit. People are tired, and I think we could have done a lot differently from the Labour Party's point of view. But whilst I understand we obviously need to get it through, obviously get everything resolved, you can still stand up for people. You don't have to go, agree with that. Yes, the majority of people did vote to leave the European Union. Fair enough. But you don't have to roll over and go, oh, well, the Conservative government said this is what they want to do, so we're going to agree. Like, no, say you don't like that. You can, you can vote, you can keep, putting votes through to get us out of the European Union, but you can still make it good. Like, you can still make the best of a bad situation. It seems like Labour didn't want to do that, and it seems like Labour don't want to do that now.
So what do you think, in your opinion, what should the Labour Party's Brexit position should be?
That's a tough one, because from a me-only point of view, I think just, I would want to join back immediately. But I also realise how stupid that is from a political point of view. And I think you see, like, was it Andrew Adonis all the time? He's like, oh, the campaign to join starts now. It's like, just accept that we lost. It's okay. I love the European Union. I would love to join back, but I also realise that people don't. People voted to leave. They want to leave, and I think Labour should focus on going. We didn't want, the majority of us of the party did not want to leave. However, we accept that the British people made this choice, and as such, we want to focus on making sure every deal we get with EU countries and non-EU countries alike is the best deal for the people of Britain, and focus on that idea that you're putting British people first. People will like that. Even people who voted to stay in the European Union, who want to join back, can go, well, at least they've acknowledged that they didn't want to leave. At least they're trying to make things better, and they could go, maybe one day we'll rejoin, but for now we're not going to comment on that, because that leaves that little bit of door open to people to go, oh, they did say they'd rejoin if they could, but it also doesn't open it too much for people to go, they just want to join the EU again.
Yeah, I think they could make the point that, look, we want to look at mutual options that are going to affect, help us and the EU together. I think what the Labour Party could do, I don't know if you're going to agree with this, but they could easily jack the Tory Party framing on a global Britain and say, look, they're doing trade deals that are selling the family China. We're not going to do that. We're going to get you trade deals with these countries, and we're going to get actual experts who understand how to do trade in order to get these trade deals, rather than selling out farmers and fishermen like they did with the Trade and Cooperation Agreement. We're going to look at resolving these issues with the EU, looking at SPS agreements and whatever else we can do to fix the problems that we're having now. We're going to keep our high standards. Any kind of trade deals we do with other countries, it's going to be to our standards, not to theirs, regardless of who they are. And even if you get pulled up by a trade minister from another country, say if Australia's like, we wouldn't give them such a deal, all you have to say is, well, Australia would say that, wouldn't they? Because it's a negotiation. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, we'll give you everything you want from the start. Like, that's how negotiation works. Like, it's very hard to pull up someone on pull up someone as a liar if it's a hypothetical, right? Because you don't know the arrangements Australia would sign up to if we played hardball with them instead of rushing a deal through to get it done before the G7. But the simple fact is, that's something the Labour Party should maybe start talking about. They could make the point that, we're going to have an SPS agreement, resolve the issues in Northern Ireland that Boris Johnson made. So that means that we do have to keep our standards high, because that's the nature of the SPS agreement. But what's wrong with having high standards? Britain, should have a proud history of high standards when it comes to farming. We don't want to have salmonella outbreaks like they constantly do in the US. We don't want people to get food poisoning, etc. We want to be a country of high standards where we want everyone to have our standards, because our standards are the best. We are Great Britain, some patriotic nonsense, blah, 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 etc., etc. I think that's what Labour's party policy should be, that yes, we want to be the best, we want to have the high standards, but when it comes to imports and doing trade deals, we want other countries to have our standards. Otherwise, we're not going to do business with them. I don't know. What do you think of that, Alice?
I think you've basically summed everything up there.
Yeah.
I know, I'd agree with everything. People can't call you a liar if it's not going to happen. Pushing that faux patriotic nonsense is kind of what people want. Say our standards are the best, yada yada yada. This is what we do, yada yada yada. Britain's great, and scene. Like, that does it. That's what people want to hear. Give them the fluff they want to hear, and then you might do well in the polls. And I guess we'll kind of come on to that with our
last question.
Last, well, we've got two more, haven't we?
Yeah, but
they kind of both think, but.
Sorry, I've interrupted you a bit there, but I'll just make the point that, look, they're selling out the family China. They're the ones selling out this country. They claim they're patriots, but what kind of patriot sells out British farmers or British fishermen? That's the points you need to make. But Starmer's so timid. He can't do it. We've always been the country of the worker, the country of the small business owner. And what are fishermen and farmers? Typically small business owners, right? Farming may be slightly different because they own a lot of land, but a lot of these farmers aren't rich. You could make that argument, but the Labour Party is just awful to the point where they want to pretend that, oh yeah, we're patriotic because we love the flag too. Like, no one believes that, and like, you just look stupid when you're the second one running to the argument that the first person's made. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Kind of, I guess as a summary, that point is exactly right. It's that they'll make a point, like the Conservatives will make a point that does well, and then Labour will go, yeah, we think that too. Like, yeah, we're going to put a flag up all the time. It's like, the point's been made. Do something different. Like, it's okay to admit they beat us to it. Just focus on getting the next win, and the win after that, and the win after that. Make them chase you, not you chase them. We're the opposition.
It's the Duff Beer argument where I think it's Bill Clinton's like, or I think it was Bill Clinton, is like, I like this beer, Duff beer, and it's Nixon saying, I also love this beer, and everyone's like, boo, you don't like Duff beer. Like that's what the Labour Party looks like when when we say, oh, we love the flag too, we're patriotic. Look, I've got 50 flags behind me. He's only got one, and his one's really small. Like
Yeah.
it's just so dumb. But yeah, I think we've kind of rambled on ad nauseum about that question. We got a question here from Hemsing Panwar, which is, can you ask him to summarise the history of the Labour Party from the 1990s to today and how it ended up being the opposition party for a decade now? Well, I can tell you for free. I can tell him, and I have. So, Ellis, you want to have a shot at this one?
Yeah, so it's a great question, Hemsing. I think the main things I've kind of got for that, and we also spoke about Clause 4. Basically, Clause 4 was the Labour Party's commitment to socialism, and I'm not sure what year it was, but it was scrapped by Tony Blair with the idea that it will win more middle class votes. And I think that kind of detachment from socialism worked then. But I think the Labour Party now recognises itself as a socialist party, and it kind of has that absence of that. And I think Clause 4 was such a big thing that Tony Blair kind of pushed the Labour Party, obviously New Labour, on a much more centrist course to win those middle class votes, which is a lot of England is those kind of southern middle class seats that you do need to win. They're big battlegrounds that if Labour does well in the south, it will do well all the time. Not recently, obviously, with the red wall falling. The other bits I've got, I'll kind of go through my bits and then
Sure.
run over. But I've got a series of leaders that didn't really inspire. Primarily, obviously, Brown and Miliband. I like Ed Miliband as a politician. I think Ed Miliband's great. He's a really knowledgeable guy, comes across well, and it just seems like a good bloke. But as leader, I think people kind of judged him off a picture of him eating a sandwich.
Yeah,
And it was quite sad to see. So I think there was, primarily with Miliband and majorly with Jeremy Corbyn, there was a big media character assassination of him. People were convinced that Jeremy Corbyn is a dangerous man, and then you'll see a picture of him who's just planting some potatoes in his allotment and reading a story to kids. Like
That's
there
really
was that.
dangerous.
Yeah, people kind of got convinced that he was like, oh, Jeremy Corbyn, big dangerous man. He's going to come for your money, and he's gonna cause this trouble, and he's a terrorist, and people believe that, and it was very, very sad to see. And the kind of two final points I'll quickly run over is, like we said earlier, when Jonathan Ashworth was on the news, Labour don't offer anything currently. There's no idea, there's no direction, there's nothing, and the infighting on the Labour Party for the last, I don't know, probably 5 years has been horrendous. There's no unity in the party. Everyone wants to have a go at each other. Everyone's out for themselves, and it seems like there's no, as much as I'll be honest, I hate the Conservative Party, but they have that unity because, ultimately they're in power. I guess helps, but they also just have the same goal of we want to be in power, we want to stay in power, and it gets them unified. Whereas with Labour, it seems like, well, I want to do this, no, I want to do that, well, you're wrong, I hate this person, yada, yada, yada. There's no unity at all in the party, from politicians to members, and it's, I think that's a big contribution. I think those are the big contributions I've kind of run over.
Yeah, I think that Monty Python skit is really accurate. The one is like, we are the Judean People's Front. No, we are the People's Front of Judea, or something like that, which is just, it's very accurate, to be fair. I think the main issue, that the reason why Labour became an opposition party, was the '08 recession, where it was very close to an election in 2010. I'm not sure Gordon Brown was looked to super favourably, especially after he sold off the gold at a cut price, which made him look very incompetent. And I think that was the main reason that the Conservative Party framing of Labour being irresponsible and blah, 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 which, we weren't in the best financial position before the recession, but the framing was really aggressive from the Conservative Party that Labour are irresponsible with money, and that still sticks to this day. People still think the Labour Party are irresponsible with money, so that's one of the main problems Labour has. Also, the fact that Corbyn put out a massive manifesto promising to nationalize things, and people are like, well, I don't think that really needs nationalizing, etc. I don't think that was great. Let's think about who we had as leaders. Gordon Brown left, and then Ed Miliband, who had a really bad team, I would argue, around him, where his
Yeah.
policies were really bad. When he was like, oh, you know what, I'm going to cut uni fees to £6,000. I was like, Ed, you might as well just not bother to get out of bed, mate, if you're going to come up with an argument like that. It's like, I'm going to make your life slightly less worse. It's like, yeah, no, people aren't going to vote for you en masse for that. So yeah, it's just a lack of direction of, where does the party want to be? Are we a centre left party? Are we a left wing party? Do we believe in clause 4? Do we still believe in clause 4? That kind of thing of, well, Jeremy Corbyn's main problem was, it wasn't just his policies, but I think he was deeply unpopular in the country. Whether you think that's right or wrong, some of the stuff he said and done wasn't the best in the past, I'm not going to lie. But if you argue that he's the problem, not the policies, then, it does create problems when Starmer said he's going to come up with his own policy proposals finally after like a year and about 6 months of me screaming at my microphone saying, please offer some policies, please. Like, I don't know how much more I have to ask you. Like, dude, you're leader of the opposition, offer something at least. Like, how can you oppose when you offer nothing? It's like, I wouldn't have done what he's done. And it's like, what would you have done then? It's like, probably nothing, mate, to be honest. It's that massive, yeah. It's not picking the right leaders, not picking the right arguments. I think maybe if Ed Miliband ran in 2017, he would have done better than Jeremy Corbyn, because Theresa May was absolutely awful. But again, that's something we're never going to know. But it's just the Labour Party need to figure out what they're about. The Conservative Party kind of know what they're about. They're a very right-wing, bordering on right-wing populist / maybe fascist almost party. They love the culture war, and people in this country love the culture war. And, the some people in this country would rather be poorer, but they want to use words that, aren't quote unquote politically correct. You can't call someone disabled now, or, use other words, and people get really upset about that in this country. I can't figure out why, because I'd be more concerned about my pay packet than the words I can say. But that kind of culture war, I think, is a massive problem for the Labour Party, because we really don't know where we are as a party. I don't know how much you agree or disagree with that monologue, Ellis, but yeah.
I think the point you made on the culture war was a fantastic one. Yeah, it's like people. It's kind of like, because the Conservatives know they can't basically do anything good because they're horrible. But they've basically gone, oh well, Johnny Foreigner over there, he's the enemy, or those woke teenagers who don't identify as a gender. Yeah, they're the ones you want to. They're the ones who are giving you problems. And people go, oh, you can't even, I can't even, call my missus a bird anymore. Like, I just want to go down the pub and do this and do that. And it's like, oh, there's 500 genders. This person wants to be in a Apache helicopter. No one does. Because you've bought into that absolute rubbish.
I mean,
you've bought into the idea that people go, the right wing has done a great job of, like, obviously I know the origins of the word woke kind of comes from oppression in the US, I believe, towards black people. So I don't want to get it too wrong, but it's like the right wing have kind of made the word woke the bad word. Oh, you think you're woke? It's like, I don't care if you put a word on it, but I'm conscious to oppression and racism and xenophobia and sexism. If that makes me woke, okay, fantastic. But people have gone, oh yeah, you're so woke because you think men should use a women's toilet. Oh, and there's a big one about people in the LGBTQ community are promoting paedophiles and stuff, and people buy into that. They go, oh well, all the gay boys think there should be gay people, and or there should be nonces and stuff. It's like, no one's thinking that. You're just reading the rubbish online that's being spouted on Facebook and going, yeah, that's true, snowflakes, a lot of them. And the Conservatives just sit back and laugh because they know you're just a puppet. You're so easy to control.
Yeah, I mean, right wingers are the biggest snowflakes that there are. You tell them a problem with Brexit, they're like, oh, you're Project Fear is what you are. And I'm like, mate, like, I've just offered you actual evidence. Like, oh, you can't quote the FT, they're a Remainer paper. You can't quote the Guardian, they're a Remainer paper. Oh, the BBC are left wing, have you seen Laura Kuenssberg? I'm like, mate.
Like, oh, the biggest right wing commentator we've got. Yes, I have seen her, funnily enough.
I think it's Andrew Neil, to be fair, but I suppose he's out.
Yeah. He's cool.
Also, Andrew Marr's not great. It's just all the Andrews. Just get out of the BBC, leave.
Sorry if your name's Andrew and watching this.
It's time to go, pal. Andrew Neil and Andrew Marr are the ones to blame. They've let the side down. Team Andrew has been let down by these two people. But yeah, I think the main problem is Labour don't know what they are anymore, and I don't know what the Labour Party are anymore. I can tell you they are not Boris Johnson or the Conservative Party, but I cannot tell you more than that. Even Rayner admitted herself that that the Labour Party voters didn't know what Starmer was, and if you want to know why, the main reasons were that Labour have been in opposition since the 2010s is the recession, which was badly branded onto Labour, despite the fact that it was in the US, that it was the US that caused it. So yeah, great arguments there, guys. But it's Labour kind of lost the marketing war, I think, around the recession. I mean, we're in a recession now, but no one's like, oh, this is Boris Johnson and Dishy Rishi's fault. The main reason the recession's really bad here is their faults. But I'm not going to blame the complete recession on them, because that's not very fair, is it? But the right wingers will do that. They would have blamed Jeremy Corbyn for the outbreak of COVID and any economic fallout from it. So, the main reason, Labour are here is they've lost the PR war, and the fact that they've had leaders with wildly different kind of mentalities. They're vastly different. Gordon Brown, Ed Miliband, Jeremy Corbyn and Keir Starmer, despite Starmer saying that he believes in kind of Corbyn's policies and he ran on that 2017 and 2019 manifestos, he clearly does not believe them right now. So I think that's the main problem, I think. What do you think, Ellis?
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. A few weeks ago we had Boris Johnson saying, "Let the bodies pile high," and
that thousands, yeah.
And that phrase that I don't know why Labour didn't just run with that, put it on every single billboard, newspaper, radio. I don't care what you put it on everything you can see. Let people see it, because people have forgotten it. People don't care it. They've gone, oh, he said that. You have to keep pushing it down people's throat until they get to the point where they go, okay, I'm going to acknowledge this. That's really bad. And kind of ultimately, Hemsing, you got a fantastic question. It is a case of Labour have lost what they stand for. And I'd say, if you don't know what Clause 4 is, have a little look online about the big kind of conflict around it. But it was basically it was the commitment to socialism that's now kind of gone. So I definitely have a read of that.
I'll drop a link in the description. It's on Wikipedia. Sorry.
Nice. So if you don't know much about 2008, I'd say there's a film called The Big Short. I'd give that a watch. Obviously, I don't know how much you know, but that's a great film. But ultimately, Labour doesn't know how to market itself, and the Tories know how to assassinate the Labour Party.
And they've got the press.
Yeah, they've got big media, which obviously makes the job 100 times harder. But it's Labour are doing everything to not help themselves. They just want to make lives harder and harder. And I think it'll get to the point where we may have an election whenever that comes.
Oh God!
And it'll be a case
2022.
It'll be a case of, what are we voting for? And people on the left will go, we don't really know. So vote Labour. That's kind of, I guess, if I were to summarise the question, and I'm happy to move on. But hopefully that kind of gives some help to you, Hamsing.
I'm going to be spamming that Andy Tate clip of, dear God, not another annihilation. The Andy Tate clip, because if that election comes, man, it might even be worse this time around, because those people who voted Tory might not come out and vote this time because they don't believe, some of them do have buyer's remorse, but if the Labour Party can't get voters out en masse, then, there's still massive problems here. And why would you vote for Starmer unless you really hate the Tories or you just don't like them? Who is there to vote for? I mean, not many. The Green Party have been killing it in council elections. So it's clearly not just the case that it's down to Brexit or down to whatever issue. It's that Labour have no policies, and the Greens obviously do, and people like the Green Party.
Yeah, I would say prediction for the next election is the Green Party are going to get a fair few more votes. I don't think they'll take more seats. But I think they'll take more votes, definitely, especially from the Labour Party, really. But that's kind of my lack of expertise knowledge.
To be fair, you did predict a Tory majority in 2019, and I thought it was going to be a hung parliament. So, Mystic Ellis with the predictions.
I said a big one as well, so I was very right.
I think you're right, and I was like, no, I don't think so, Ellis. Did we say it on Twitter? I think it was on Twitter, was it?
I think we did, yeah.
Well, it's public. It's public. People can see it.
When Trump won the first time round, I said to loads of people, I said, Trump's going to win this.
Yeah.
And people called me a moron. And I still remember people going, you're fucking stupid.
Did you ask someone after the result came in and said, who's a moron now? Because I
No,
would have.
it was people in person were just like, because I
Uh,
told loads of my mates, and they're like, "Don't be so stupid." And I said it's gonna happen, and it did. So if you
yeah,
want tips on,
elections.
follow me on Twitter for betting tips, even though
Yeah,
I don't
I'll
bet.
leave a
But
link in Alice's description. Also, I predicted Kane on £5 that Donald Trump would win, and he actually gave me the £5. He bought me a HDMI cable. So, yeah.
not like Kanan to give money away. God, he
To
must
be
be.
fair, I did pester him about it loads. I was like, "Yo, do you see that guy, Donald Trump? He's president now. Didn't you say he wouldn't win?" So, anyways, we'll move on to one of coming towards the end. Calvin Challam, his question of his kind of thing, and then his question of the Conservatives have stolen traditional Labour voters using the Brexit divide. Criticism of the Conservatives is directed to criticisms of the Brexit vote and an inference that those who voted for it are stupid. How does Labour, under any leader, get their voter base back? And we kind of touched on it a bit, but I feel like this is a really difficult question to answer. So, over to you, Ellis.
Yeah, I think this is. It's a fantastic question. It's a hard one to answer because ultimately, how do you get a voter base back? And Labour have a really big problem of voter base. And what I mean by that is that you have people from traditional mining towns in the north and Wales primarily who are very focused on job security, wages, and not not to everyone. I'm not going to blanket everyone with the tar everyone with the same brush, but they tend to be fairly anti-immigration as well because their focus is on British jobs, British people, and they want a good pension, they want good working conditions, and they want good public services. You then have people on the other side, like us, who are young and they're open-minded. They're very pro social justice. They tend to be very internationalist, very open to the European Union and immigration. And Labour have the problem of, well, how do I appeal to X person in an old mining town who just wants his job and doesn't really care about foreigners or, that kind of equality? And then how do I appeal to the young voter who is very focused on that equality and inclusivity? How do I appeal to both those people? And ultimately, you have to find that middle ground. But finding the middle ground is extremely hard. And what I always found, what I think they should do, is targeting. So instead of just doing big ads for the Labour Party, yada yada yada, do ads that go, the Labour Party supports, basically list everyone and go, this ad is for these people. So because I'm not, there's things that the Labour Party push for I don't care about, and there are things that Labour Party will push for that Steve down the road doesn't care about. But if you can kind of target the people and go, hey, Steve, we know you care about jobs. Here's what we want to do for job security, for public services, for this, that, and the other. He'll go, oh, fantastic. The Labour Party really have my back. They're really looking out for my interests. They really care about people like me. And I can go, oh, there's an ad targeted more towards me. Hi, Ellis. We really care about social justice and, the massive rise in racism and xenophobia. Here's what we're going to do to counteract that. And I'll go, oh, the Labour Party really care about me. That's fantastic. They're trying to appeal to everyone in one go, and that's not going to work. It's never going to work because the scope of Labour voters is too big, and that's ultimately what I think their problem really is, and I think that's how they need to work on fixing it to an extent.
So yeah, I think there's some great points there. And hello, is this Cambridge Analytica? Ellis has a job for you. Can you use the voter data, please? Like, what do you mean that's kind of illegal and you're not in operation anymore? Who is this? So yeah, I think that's some great points there. I think the use of social media, which Keir Starmer hasn't actually done, and to be fair, I think I get more views on some of my YouTube videos than they do, despite the fact that they've got a bigger subgroup. I think it's ridiculous. Their lack of use of social media and stuff like that it's kind of crazy. It's something Jeremy Corbyn did actually really well and gave us the false idea that he might actually win the 2017 election. Damn you, Twitter. But
yeah, the hope. I still remember when it came what's it called? Like after when the polls closed.
yeah.
I still remember seeing it, and I was literally like, "It's this bad." Like I saw things. I was like, "Oh my god, we might have a hung parliament. Labour they might bloody win." And I had that hope, and then I saw it, and I was like, "I just want to cry and go to bed."
I think this kind of ties in well with our last question, which is what is the new Rainbow Coalition or Labour's key to victory, which is that the micro sort of targeting of ads would be really good, but I think they just need to focus on the economics, man. Like, how are they going to fix people's economic issues? You know, all these, you know, I'll dismantle them. I'd say all these points about immigration and, you know, taking jobs, etc. It's because the government aren't building enough housing. We know there's a chronic house shortage in the UK. You know, so why is it that the government haven't built enough sustainable housing? It's, you know, it's the government's fault on that. Why aren't wages high enough? It's the government's fault on that, etc. You know, what's happened with fishing? Whose fault is that? You know, which party has been in charge for the last 11 years? And make that point that the NHS has been chronically underfunded under the last three Conservative leaders. What do they have in common? All three of them are Tories. If you think the NHS is safe under Boris Johnson, it's not. Because we've already seen it. If it was safe, he would have invested the money in it. This is the guy who threw our healthcare workers and people under the bus. You know, this is the person who said, "Oh, these people are key workers," and never gave them a pay rise. That's the kind of thing I'd be focusing on. You know, focus on the economics, but focus on that image of how patriotic is a leader that he won't give a pay rise to the nurses that saved him whilst he had COVID. You know, start talking about that kind of thing where, you know, you can talk about the patriotism and how Great Britain is, etc., but you need to focus on the economics, you know, a new deal for Britain, but you need to look at talking about nationalising things like buses and trains. Don't go over the odds and, you know, say internet and whatever else. Start with a few things that you could make well. I think the Conservative government are kind of not nationalising the trains, but kind of nationalising the infrastructure again or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
I saw some plans today from Grant Shapps. I haven't had enough time to read and actually understand what they're talking about, because they're like, "Oh, this isn't nationalisation, guys." I'm like, "Well, what is this then?" And so yeah, you know, really focus on the issues that are problems for people. You know, because some of the stuff Jeremy Corbyn was putting out in 2019, it was too futuristic, I think. But then again, the fact that he wants to nationalise internet companies to get internet to everyone, you know, in this pandemic made a lot of sense because everyone needs access to the internet, and especially high-speed internet. When I did YouTube with my old internet provider, when I upload a video, it would crash the whole house. It crashed the internet for the whole house because my upload speed was that bad. And like, there was only one other internet provider I could go to in my area. It's just ridiculous. But I just feel like it didn't resonate with enough people, even though he made good arguments. So I think sort of focusing on smaller points, like, you know, reforming certain key sectors will be important for Labour, and really think about which ones are the most important for people. Don't offer them a ton of things like a buffet menu. Offer them key specific things that they're going to want, if that makes sense. I don't know, you know, what your thoughts on that are, Alice.
Yeah, a lot of good points. And I think what underlies quite a lot of those is that there's such an absence of aggression from the Labour Party. They don't want to go after the Tories. They're too. It's like the Conservative government are going, Labour's bad, terrible at this, terrible at that, you're rubbish. And the Labour Party kind of go, oh, we don't think we are. You know, go back and go, well, no, actually, you're this, you're that. You know, you're like the point you made. The NHS is so underfunded. Last three leaders, all Tories. There's your link. Wages aren't going up. Yeah. Oh, funny enough, last three leaders, all Tories. There you go. Go for them. Go for the throat. Because the Conservative Party would do the exact same to you. Go for them. Be aggressive. Be strong. Be confident. Go straight to them and go, right, if you want a slog match, we'll give you one. We'll trade punches all day long, because we know that you're the ones causing the problems.
And I think a key point is to make is that they've been promising a northern powerhouse since I think George Osborne was in charge. Where is it at? You know, under the Labour government, even if you argue the New Labour talking points, which I've seen some people say that maybe Labour needs to talk about the successes of New Labour. We had schools that were way better funded. We had hospitals that were way better funded. We had all of these things, right? And it was under a Labour government, not under the Tories, where we've had massive cuts to NHS. You know, 2010 was one of the highest points, I think, of favourability in the NHS. Where's that? You can't see your GP. You know, why is that? It's because the Conservative government have cut these things. And make that point that we will bring these things back because it's within our remit to do that. We can invest money in the NHS. Yes, it takes time to train up doctors and things like that, but we will put the money in to do that. We will look at reforming the systems in order to get people in. We will look at improving education so that when kids leave school, they're going to leave with good grades and they're going to be able to get, you know, good apprenticeships or, you know, good degrees that are going to help them to push on in life. You know, make these sorts of arguments and you're going to do a lot better. I think that's Labour's key to victory, is make the point that we in 2010, you know, in 1997, we inherited a country that wasn't doing the best economically, and we turned ourselves into a powerhouse through policies, through spending. You know, spending the money on people, not our friends, not corporations, not giving rich people tax cuts, but by increasing taxes and making sure that working class people had the help they needed. We had a welfare system that worked. We had a job system that worked, etc. Under the Conservative government, you have people dying on welfare. Is that the country you want to be? because that's not the country I want the Labour Party. That's not the country I want to live in. I want a country that has a good welfare system that looks after people. As they reach old age. That national care service they talked about. Stuff like that, I think those might resonate more with people, especially as Gen Xers kind of age out a bit more as well, which, no one wants to be stuck in a care home. No one wants to be stuck in a position where they feel like they're a burden to their family. And make that point that we will look at reforming these things in order to help people improve their quality of life later on.
I think you wrapped up perfectly, to be honest. I couldn't add a single thing to that. I agree with everything.
I think, again, the Rainbow Coalition is difficult, isn't it? Because you need to get working class people and you need to get minorities together. But the difficulty in that is one group of people, sort of certain, white working class people, I think they don't like immigrants much because they think immigrants are taking everything they have. Some people get annoyed because they want to see, too many brown faces at Tesco's or whatever ridiculous arguments they come up with. But I think you need to decouple the immigration argument from the economic argument. That's going to be very difficult to do because of the years of stigma around sort of immigrants and things like that. But that's something I think I want to see the Labour Party at least try and tackle. Getting better advisors in would help. But, I just don't know what they're going to do. Their key to victory, I think, is going back to the economics. Talking about how you're generally going to improve people's lives, not doing it as a buffet, but keep it simple. Talk about which areas really need nationalisation, or maybe a public option where the government creates a business that competes with internet providers or whatever. Do something like that. But the way it is now, Labour's key to victory right now is getting rid of Starmer and getting someone who's competent. But there's a lack of talent within the Labour Party. Do you see anyone who could really lead the Labour Party that you genuinely believe in?
I actually, genuinely, the only person, obviously, he's got a lot of good press, is Andy Burnham. But as MPs go, the only person, well, I like a few of them. Zara Sultana, I'm a big fan of Zara Sultana. She's really good.
I feel like the thing is she's a minority, and I feel like she would struggle to get that kind of white working class vote, at least some of it.
Yeah, I'd agree.
Yeah, she seems all right. There is a real lack of talent, I think, in the Labour Party, and I think that's a problem. Andy Burnham, I think he'd hemorrhage votes amongst minorities and in the South since he decided to bash EU immigrants for lowering the wages of people within, certain places. I'm just like, shut up, Andy.
Yeah.
Get back in your box, pal. But I guess
we'll never really know, but it would be interesting to kind of see if anyone wants to mount that challenge and ultimately, I guess, how they do. But
what are you saying? Give it Andy to the end of the season? Is that what you're saying, Ellis? Give it Andy to the end of the season.
I wouldn't be opposed, but I think, you kind of summed up the question quite well, as how does that get the vote?
Just to quickly go back to Calvin Challam's question, I think Labour needs to make that economic argument and make the point that the Tories are frauds. That investment never comes. They always promise it. They've been promising, investing. They say they're the party of the NHS. They invest in it. This is the party that opposed the NHS when it was created and still oppose the NHS now. Who've been privatising it slowly but surely. Make the point that we are the party of these things and we have a record of investing in these places. And when the Tories hit back and talk about PFI contracts and all that stuff, just say that, look, these are the things you guys are doing. Yes, we didn't fund them in the best way, but at least we funded them. At least we gave the NHS the money it needed. Where's the money that you promised? Nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
The only money you've handed out, mate, is 36 billion to Dido Harding, who's done a rubbish job of test and trace. Make that point.
Yeah, be aggressive and just fight back a bit. I think is all what people want is just a bit of a fight, and such an absence of that. But I haven't really got anything else to add to that. To be honest, I think you've kind of done a great job on that question. And
the other thing is he does piece up Boris Johnson during PMQs on occasion. Like, why are you not sharing that aggressively on social media? Honestly, like, show his answer and show him bumbling like an idiot. Yeah,
post it everywhere. Get it online, get it circulating, push. If you've got to pay Twitter to get it trending, pay Twitter to get it trending. Get people seeing that and going, oh, Keir Starmer's very accomplished there, isn't he? He's really ruined Boris Johnson. Get that going.
I mean, honestly, put it on every social media page, Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, wherever, man.
Yeah, wherever you can get it, put it, and people will see it. Eventually the exposure will get to a lot of people, and then you'll do well. But I don't know. That's kind of my 2 cents, and I think we've kind of
stop doing exclusives with the Telegraph as well. Stop it. It's a paywall. Stop it.
The paywall. If you're gonna do it, make sure there's no paywall, for God's sake.
Like, like, why are they charging people to read an article about the leader of the opposition?
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
No, I
Murdoch
agree.
press lad. But yeah, we've spoken about a lot. Sorry, Alice. We've got some great questions from the audience. So shouts out Cinderella, Hemsing Panwa, Big Christian Cruz, Calvin Challam. Great questions from
thanks,
everyone. I feel like we've, less questions here, but I feel like we've discussed them at length. It's gone on a bit longer than I think we both would have wanted, but there's no big issue with that. I think.
I've got my poor dinner getting cold downstairs.
Oh yeah, sorry man, I forgot you've got dinner. We do this for the audience though. The audience asks the questions, and we're here to supply the answers.
We do,
like
yeah. It's been
Kevin
a
De
long
Bruyne
day.
crossing into the back post for somebody who's not very tall. That's us. But thank you, Ellis, for coming on.
Always a pleasure.
I'll drop your Twitter handle below, as always.
Thank you very much.
Follow
Hopefully,
Ellis if you want to see painful Arsenal takes and the occasional bits on politics.
Yes, it's the season's ending now, so it'll be painful England takes for the summer, but we go again.
And then next season we're back to get Arteta gone. Why is Willian on the pitch? Where's Martinelli?
Well, we've got a few minutes off, so yeah.
Yeah, we're going to go back to the classics. But yeah, no, 100% I recommend following Ellis. I too follow Ellis. Worth it. Thank you for coming on this podcast. You're a great friend and a great guest.
Happy to support channel and always love to be on.
Congrats on your hat trick. I wish I had a match ball to give you, but I don't.
Maybe one day I'll get a signed ball from you and I'll put it proudly in my.
Should I get you a Mitre football and I'll sign it?
Thank you very much.
All right, cool. Thanks, Ellis. I'll catch you later.
All right, see you later.